Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 16 millimeter film crew. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Dale.
This week, we watched Sentimental Value, written and directed by Joachim Trier. Sisters Nora and Agnes reunite with their estranged father, Gustav, a once renowned director who offers Nora a role in what he hopes will be his comeback film. Nora turns it down, but soon discovers he's given the part to an eager young Hollywood star. The two siblings must now navigate a complicated relationship with Gustav while dealing with an American actress dropped right in the middle of their complex family dynamics. This movie stars Renat Reinsve, Inga Lilias, Stellan Skarsgård, and Elle Fanning. So, Dale, what were your thoughts about this
This is what the second I want to say Johann Traeger movie we've seen. Of course, it's also the second one starring the young lady. I don't want to mess up her name either. Renetta Rensved as well from Worst Person in the World. So it's good to have that pairing again because it seems like she's able to express those deep seated emotions that you want in a picture like this. Particularly, it's a story of, you know, just like Worst Person in the World, it's a young person trying to connect and figure out who they are. But this is also dealing with the connection of their with their father.
one?
And them also dealing with the emotional baggage they have as a person, not just with their father, but significant others, siblings, uh, nephews and stuff like that. So it's a really detailed, introspective. It doesn't just speak to her character, but it's talking about all three of those things kind of interact. Nora and dealing with her, not just the abandonment issues she has with her father leaving when their parents divorced, but also them both, him knowing you're me and I'm you. Like it's always weird when that parent you have that you always kind of combative with is a person that as you get older you realize you're most like, and she's dealing with that. And of course you have Angus actually learning more about her grandmother and stuff like that, and also him realizing he's getting old and those connections that he failed to make as a parent when he left, but him trying to communicate them in a way that only he knows how. Like all those things coming together in one perfect package.
Yeah, this movie made me cry. I was very emotional watching this one. And the people who had watched it before me were saying that like it's about daddy issues. So like if you have those, then whatever. And like yeah, it is, but it's much more than that, I think. To me it's really just about like family and like
Yeah.
generational trauma. That's kind of what it's giving in this one. Um and when I was watching it, it felt very similar to Hamnet.
Yeah.
Mainly because it's about like a father figure who has this creative outlet and who is able to express themselves that way, but can't really express themselves to their family,
Yeah.
and the kind of distance and standoff that creates within like a family unit. So it reminded me a lot of that movie, and I feel similarly about both. I was really moved by both, I think. And as like a younger sister who has an older sister, I think the scenes between Agnes and Nora really hit for me because it's like, yeah, it's just really like if like if you've been in the situation where it's like maybe your parents split up or whatever, and it's like the kids are kind of left to figure out what to do next. Like it is really like it does bond you in a certain way where you're like very much looking out for each other, and it's really sweet. I really love their relationship so much. I thought that was like the heart of the film for me, and also
Mm-hmm.
the relationship they have or Nora has with her nephew. I thought that was really sweet. Um, I think that this movie is like interesting because it's a movie about family, but it's also a movie about like art. So it's like about like Gustav has this film that he's making. Like he's a respected director. He hasn't made a film in a really long time, and so it's him trying to like write the like script of his life,
Mm-hmm.
make the movie of his life that's dedicated to his daughter. Um, and just seeing like because usually you see like people on the come up when it comes to stories about Hollywood or about the industry. It's like people trying to make it. and you don't often see it from the other side where they've already made it and they're trying to like make that one last thing. Like to me, when I was like thinking about his character, I was thinking about like the older guard, like Scorsese and all of those guys, like the
Yeah.
who have been around for a long time and have put out so much great work, and is trying to maybe find some new vitalization, something new, but like they're all very old. And there's one scene in this where he's like talking to one of his, I think, is it his producing partner or something? He goes to his
Yeah.
house. Do you know who
I
that
think it
guy
was
is?
cinematographer he was trying to get.
A cinematographer. Okay, yeah. And the cinematographer like gets up and he's like walking with the cane and stuff, and he's like Gustav is like shocked. Like he's shocked that he is so old, like his friend is so old, like maybe it kind of makes him confront his own mortality in a way. Um, and like all the mistakes that he probably made with his own daughter. So like it was interesting to see that dynamic from just like a filmmaker standpoint of like being towards the end of your life, trying to make something meaningful, but also trying to like fix the issues that you've created because you were off, making movies and being successful, and kind of all the issues that that kind of, I guess, created for your family. And I mean, we don't, I think they lightly talk about what actually broke down the marriage between him and his wife,
Hmm.
but it's not like fully clear. But I do think that him like being a very successful director, having access to a lot of opportunities, women, all that other stuff really did like damage his marriage. And then I guess also kind of made it more easy for him to just leave.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and I love how it is. Like I said earlier, this movie kind of targets everybody in the family. Like like I said, it's always weird to see that person. Like I realized as I got older, like all the negative stuff we could usually see in other people is like the most available to us. Like we're able to point out much easier because those are also some characters or stuff we see within ourselves, even though we don't really want to outwardly face it. So when we see somebody do something that that rattles us a certain way, we go, oh, it's we bypass it because that's something we have in ourselves and we don't like it in ourselves. So we lash out at somebody else. And as they're like the two of them, both Nora and him, going back and forth. She's like, "You haven't ever seen my work." He's like, "I've seen it. I just like the way my mind works and how I communicate. Like being in a theater, I can hear what you're saying, but I'm unable to like get the full picture. Like for me, the whole like I understand his viewpoint because like
mm,
we've talked about before, like my editing style and also when I edit projects, when I film stuff, I'm like to see I'm big on body language. Like people don't really understand like body language is a major part of communication. And that for him is like I can go to theater and depending on where I'm sitting, I just might hear you. But for him is like I don't get to see your eyes. I don't get to see those microaggressions that the micro expressions you make that communicate your details. And you see it come to light more so when he's talking to Elle Fanning's character of
mm,
Rachel during one of the walkthroughs through one of the scenes, and she's explaining how she feels about the scenes. Then they do a table reading, she does it, and you see both her and her co-star, they break down crying, and you kind of see he's reading like I get the emotion, but I don't see the emotion. No,
mm,
no. He's like
mm,
because remember the story is more so written for his daughter,
right.
and even when he's talking to his daughter about the role itself, like I see you in the theater, but I can't stay because I can't feel your presence as an actor. So he sees this Taylor Reid as like, okay, I can see her performing the part, but I can't feel the emotion behind the part. Because there's a slight pause when they're all crying and breaking down. He like kind of relaxes, goes, yes, very good. And he tilts his head back, realizing like he can't go forward. And that also starts creating schisms between him and Rachel, in the part because remember it's also the story of his mother but
Mm,
is written for his daughter as kind of like a bookend because I think remember in the movie Agnes started a movie for him when she was younger as
yes.
and then now it's the opposite end with the daughter who's most like him being in his magnum opus per se.
Yep. And I feel like that was maybe there's like three scenes in this movie that are like my favorite, that are just like very much in my head. and two of them have to do with the scene that they're doing at the rehearsal. So where Rachel and her co-star maybe
Yeah.
um they're like going over this scene. I think it's like either right before she wants to end her life or somewhere around
Somewhere, I
that
think it's, yeah. I think it's, we're talking
part.
about the same scene. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that scene. And to watch him watch her do that scene was so fascinating because it's like you can tell that he's like she's able to bring the emotion to it, but it falls flat because
Yeah.
it's not genuine. It's not coming from a place where it's like you understand the family history, like you're a part of this,
Yeah.
and so you're able to bring something else. And then to see that scene done later in the movie with Nora and her sister when she's reading it, that was like perfect
Yeah.
because like you saw the first part, right, and it was like like it's good but
Not
it doesn't
there.
feel genuine.
Yeah.
And then you see it later with Nora and like she's reading it and like you're just like okay, well obviously like you're supposed to do the part, like you have it, this whole energy is completely different, like it feels so much more authentic. And I love the character of Rachel, which I wasn't thinking that I was going to, honestly, when she was first introduced, because I thought she was just going to be like another, like, oh, she's like a famous Hollywood starlet, blah, blah, blah. Like, and she wants to make this movie. She thinks this director is such a genius and she just like wants to do it because it'll help her career and her
Mm.
profile. But the way that they took the character was so unexpected for me because like they gave her a lot of like empathy and understanding. Like the fact that she like wants to talk to Nora and she's like, hey, like, why didn't you do this? Like, I feel like this part was written for you. Like I dyed my hair and everything, but I'm not you. I can't do the part really. And the fact that she even admits that to
Mm.
Gustav later and is like, I'll stay if you want me to, but honestly, I really don't think this is for me. I think you got to make this with your daughter. Like I really liked that. I really liked that she had like enough self-awareness to understand that like even though this was a good part, it just wasn't meant for her
Mm.
and she was able to step away. Like I thought that was really smart and I really like what they did with the character. But I just love those two scenes where it's like she's like this isn't meant to be in English. Like you really should, you know, do it in your native language. And also like I'm trying to do an accent, like it's not really working. It doesn't feel real, like it doesn't feel honest. And I really loved like the insight of like an actor's perspective as they're preparing for roles. I felt like how they explain it, how they show that is really interesting because I don't sometimes when you do movies about like people in the industry, it doesn't always come off like where you're explaining or you're really showing like what it takes to do the art. It's just kind
Mhm.
of like really nice looking scenes and people being like really good performers. But like in terms of like the ins and the outs of it, I thought that they did such a good job in exploring all of that. And ultimately, like I would think ultimately the reason why Nora takes the role is because her father almost dies. But I think she also understands like my other favorite scene where her and her sister are talking. She reads the screenplay and then she asks her sister, "Did you tell dad about that, you know, me almost like ending my life?" And she goes, "No, I don't know how he knew. Like how does like I don't know how he understood to knew to put that into the script."
Mhm.
And the moment that they share when she's like, "Why are you okay?" and I'm so messed up, and she's like, "Oh, well, I'm not that great. Like, you don't know. I'm outwardly showing that I'm more composed, and you know, I got married, I got the kid, but that doesn't mean that what happened between dad and mom and all that stuff didn't mess me up.
Yeah.
It did."
Yeah.
And that moment they shared when she was like, "I needed you. You were my safety." Like that was the best scene in the entire movie for me. I was like, this is great. I get why you won the Oscar. Like, bravo. Like, that was amazing.
Yeah. I love that scene as well because I can look at it as being an older sibling and
Yeah.
also being the brother of my sisters. Like there's like I remember me myself immensely having certain expectations I'm supposed to do, like carrying on baggage I probably didn't have to carry. And it's not until I got older and like you reach a sense of commonality with your siblings. I didn't get older, were able to express themselves, and there she was my like they were like I felt the same way too. But in my head, I'm like, I feel so much more stress. Like, because I'm the only son and I'm the oldest sibling. So for me, it feels more monumental than it feels to you. And there are certain things I've had to understand, like, oh, I've allowed that same mutual feeling that we've all had to hamper me. And that's the same thing. Like, I saw a lot of that in Nora and her sister, be like, between me and my sisters as well. You know, that sibling dynamic of dealing with issues and how you each view it and take care of it in a certain way. Um, yeah, and like, I bring it back. Like, that's also reminds me of the table scene where he comes for the nephew's birthday. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like giving him movies like, this is how you could talk to women. This is like, once again, movies is how he communicates. He can only communicate his emotions behind scripts. It's very much giving me and you mentioned older directors. It gives me very much Spielberg and Fablemans.
Yeah.
Basically, Spielberg, like, this is my story of me growing up and how I became who I am. But throughout that whole movie, he can only express his emotions on how he feels, especially with his mother and his parents' divorce and stuff with his dad, only, or the issues of bullies and stuff at school. And he films them into a perfect light. He can only express those things through a camera, and that's that's Gustav's communicative language here. But the dinner table scene where he's talking about his experiences as like a creative, like, this stuff, like, oh, sometimes as creative we only can communicate this way. Sometimes you feel lonely. Like, you're very much like me, and I understand you, but for some reason you don't want to understand me. Like, even though we're both creatives, we look for passion, we look for love. Even though my relationship had issues, I still also think the greatest gift and greatest thing I've created are you guys. And Nora brings up, oh, but you were still out here cheating and you left mom,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that was still hard for me to do. Like, I'm admitting my faults as a human being, and I know it was wrong. And he's like, but you're searching for those same things, and we see it with her relationship with one of her co-stars, that she's still
Mm-hmm.
looking for love. Her relationship with her nephew, that she wants a family as well. And he's like, but this anger you continue to carry isn't healthy, it's not safe, and it also limits you creatively, because you're keeping yourself in the small box of theater, performing older works instead of expanding your box and exploring newer things. I loved that. Basically, he's giving himself therapy, and I also think that's kind of her adherence to therapy, because remember, throughout the movie she goes to her room and she can hear her mom was there, the mother was a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and she can hear what's happening in the therapy room in their bedroom through the the wood burning stove. So she can.
Mm-hmm.
So I think also she's internalized her mom's psychotherapy to other people into herself, thinking, "Oh, I know my flaws. I don't need help," and refusing to seek out that actual help.
Yeah. And that's such uh like a talking, like not a talking point, but like something that people say a lot when like either they're related to a therapist or something like that, or they like been through a lot of therapy. They were like, I know what's wrong with me, so I'm fine.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, you can know it, but there's other steps you got to take after that. Like it's very it's interesting
yeah,
because she is such a mirror to her father in so many ways. And I think she's just like mad that like she can't like reverse time and get him to be this like caring and open and like whatever back then when she was growing up. So she's like holding on to that anger
yeah,
of like it doesn't matter, you're still not there. And it's almost like because he like she has a premiere for a play and he doesn't go. And even though he said he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go, but he doesn't show up.
yeah,
And it's almost like rather than like dealing with the difficulties of like how she may or may not act, it's just easier not to show up and not
yeah.
to be there for him. And I feel like that's kind of how he probably dealt with most of his issues through life, where it's just like it's too complicated, so I think I'm just not gonna engage.
Skedaddle. Yeah,
Yeah. But I do like that when Agnes is like looking up the history of her grandmother, it does put in context like why he is the way he is. Like his mom went through something horrible and she did never talked about it.
yeah,
Like, can you imagine like living in a house where like your mother was taken and then she returns and never speaks about what happened to her during that time. Like it does put perspective into like why he is the way he is and then why they are the way that they are. Because you do have Nora who is like much more confrontational with her father. Like she's not afraid to like throw it back at him whenever he says anything versus Agnes who is like I'll do whatever you want. I'll be in your movie. Like she just wants to make peace. Like she doesn't want to have any issues. And then it like explodes. Like she can't hold on to that role anymore because
Yeah,
it's like you're an adult now. Like
yeah,
you can't be like daddy's perfect girl anymore. Like you kind of have to be real with him about
yeah,
like what's going on. And I like that she gets there. I don't know. I really like the progression of all the characters. I feel like they start in one place and you can understand why they're in those places, but like by the end, like their arc feels so earned. Like
yeah.
every single person in that movie, like again, just really fantastic writing. I think Joachim just like, or I keep feeling I keep saying his name wrong. Sorry, but he's like a really good writer.
Yeah,
Even in Worst Woman in the World, like he just knows how to write good, like fully rounded, complex characters. So it's always super engaging watching his movies
yeah,
because you're like, yeah, I totally get where you are. And I feel good that you end up where you are at. Like when she finally does the movie, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what we needed. Like, this was great. I was so happy that she did it and that it was like a family thing. And that,
yeah,
like, Agnes lets her son do the movie because his aunt is the one who is portraying the character. Like, there's like a safety in that. And I really enjoyed that.
yeah. His strength really is writing about the human condition in this way, like how we
Mm-hmm.
process and do learn relationships. Louder than bombs with Jesse Eisenberg. Same thing, Thelma to a degree. Of course, worst person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Sentimental value. This is his wellhouse of expressing trauma bonds and like all those things in film. Really gifted at it. More like, and it's I think he's like 52,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't think of somebody in that age as being really introspective in a way. Like you don't see a lot of the iconic directors being introspective like with a lot like this is like his sixth project I think sentimental value for the most part as far as feature film. And you don't really see a lot of directors for majority of filmography really very introspective in the way that he is at this age. Usually like I said, right now that's what Spielberg is doing to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Of course that's what Scorsese's doing right now to a degree. It's not until later in their careers where they said, "Oh, I'm established. I'm near the end of what would be my life and my career. Now I'm going to be a lot more introspective." Like, no, he's like third project in where we're hitting these emotional beats and topics.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think that my favorite part about this movie is just the fact that, like, at the end of the day, you kind of just have to accept your family for who they are. And I think that that's kind of,
yeah,
I think so much tension that happens between families is because you're trying to fight against that and trying to like get them to come around to your way of thinking or your way of whatever. And that really doesn't work. Like,
no,
you kind of just have to say, okay, this is who you are and this
yeah,
is how you communicate. So let me engage with you on your
yeah,
terms for the time that we have, especially as when you're a younger person and you can see that your parents are getting older and stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
you gotta kind of just go with the
You
flow a little
gotta you
bit.
gotta
You gotta
roll with
figure
the
it out.
punches and just meet
Yeah.
people at where they are. Like once again, like I said, that really moves me. Like me, like of course, my dad is an older Jamaican man. You're not gonna be as emotionally expressive
Mm-hmm.
unless it's necessarily that bow breaking. And so where I am like now dealing with my mental history and understanding like I can't hold stuff in, I will express how I feel. There are times even me as an adult, talk to him one on one as adults and still be father and son. He's like, "Oh, I'm not used to expressing myself that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to communicate to you the way you want to communicate. It's hard for me." But that's also once again learning as you get older. Like you can't expect a person which Nora and Amy are supposed to learn to communicate to you the way you want them to communicate to.
Yeah.
You have to understand, like, they're also an individual as well. They receive information the same, like, differently from you. They understand it differently. You know, like, I had a conversation with one of my friends about this kind of same topic. Like, you could tell somebody something in a certain way, and you might think you're softening the blow, but you can't dictate how they perceive what you said.
Yeah.
You know, in a way. And that's what Nora, she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna be perfect. I'm gonna just lash out, tell you how I feel. And she thinks she's done the right thing when their father becomes quiet and doesn't respond, they go, see, oh, you don't want to communicate, you don't want to talk. It's like, no, that's just not how he communicates. You know.
Yep. Life lessons from Sentimental Value. Like, honestly, listen, this movie was fantastic. Makes so much sense to all the hype, makes sense to all the awards, makes sense everything that it's doing and getting. I'm glad that it's on Hulu now so more people can see it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hulu,
10 out of 10.
Amazon.
It was great.
It was,
yeah.
And also, like, a little sneakily, it's also, I think, the part when he's talking about getting the movie financed and the behind the scenes stuff with being creative, being a writer director. It's also a little meta critique / satire on the state of the industry.
Oh, definitely.
Like, he's like, this is my passion project. I want funding for it. You know what? I originally casted my daughter in this project. We'll find a way to fund this thing somehow, some way. And then he goes, all of a sudden, hey, I'm a big Hollywood actress. I want to be a part of this project. Netflix comes calling. And then there's all these, you know, loopholes and stuff you have to deal with from Netflix. I love that little touch as the current state of the filmmaking industry happens. And it's honestly, a lot of the directors who get these kind of deals with streaming platforms are the big, like, legacy guys, like your Spielbergs, your Scorseses, your Christopher Nolan's kind of thing. You know, they're the tentpole guys who, you know, hey, I have a name, I have cachet. If I get this big name actor, I know I'm gonna get a funding. So I like that little meta critique on the state of the industry in a way.
Very good. Well, that is it from us this week. We hope that you're all doing well and taking care of yourselves. Make sure to check all of our social media, support us if you can, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.
Au revoir.